Here's something that surprises a lot of people the first time they hear it. For many high achievers, the number that finally makes retirement possible isn't the thing that makes it feel safe. Financial advisors report a specific, recurring pattern: clients whose numbers are objectively solid, verified, stress-tested, who still can't bring themselves to actually stop working. Not because the math is wrong, because something else entirely is doing the resisting. If you've ever felt that pull to work just one more year, even when you couldn't fully explain why, this video is about what's actually behind that resistance, and it's almost never the account balance. Think about anyone you've known who kept delaying a retirement they were financially ready for. Notice how the explanation always sounds financial on the surface. Just to be safe. The market's uncertain right now. One more year won't hurt. But watch how often the goalposts move even after the original number gets hit. That's usually the tell. If the resistance were really about the number, hitting the number would resolve it. When it doesn't, something else is doing the actual work behind the hesitation. Picture a bird that's spent years in a cage with the door left open the entire time. Not locked, genuinely open the whole time. And the bird still doesn't fly out. Not because it's afraid of what's outside, and not because it doesn't notice the door is open. It's because the cage stopped being a container a long time ago and quietly became the actual shape of its days. The bars were never really what was holding it there. The routine was. That's the pattern underneath so much retirement anxiety. The fear isn't usually, will I have enough money? It's, who am I, structurally, on the other side of a door that's been open this whole time, but never actually walked through. The cage was never the threat. It was the architecture. There's a well-documented psychological mechanism called identity fusion. The point at which a role stops being something a person does and becomes something they are. After decades of a career, I work in this field quietly becomes, I am someone who works. Full stop. No object required. That's not a flaw. It's just what happens to any sufficiently long-repeated identity. The problem only shows up at the exact moment that identity is supposed to end, because the mind doesn't have an automatic backup identity waiting in the wings. Retirement doesn't just remove a job. For a fused identity, it can genuinely feel like it's removing a self. Layered onto that is something researchers sometimes call scarcity trauma, a nervous system baseline for financial safety that was set early, often decades before the current numbers ever existed, and that doesn't automatically recalibrate just because circumstances have objectively changed. Someone who grew up around real financial insecurity can accumulate a genuinely solid retirement position later in life and still feel a persistent, specific hum of not enough that has almost nothing to do with the actual figures. The wiring was built for a different reality. It never got an update notice. And there's a third, more subtle mechanism explaining the specific shape of the resistance: hyperbolic discounting, applied to a decision most people don't even realize they're making. Working one more year always looks slightly safer on paper than stopping now. The model always prefers more certainty, more buffer, more margin. But that model has a blind spot. It never prices in the cost of the year itself. The health, the time, the version of a relationship or a hobby, or simply a Tuesday morning that year could have contained. Every additional year of just to be safe is compared only against future financial risk, never against the very real, very present cost of the year being spent working instead of not. The math isn't wrong. It's just answering a smaller question than the one that actually matters. None of these three mechanisms are really about the money at all. Identity fusion is about who you are without the role. Scarcity trauma is about a threat that expired long before the wiring caught up. Hyperbolic discounting is about a math model that only ever weighs one side of the scale. The number in the account is almost incidental to all three. It's worth noticing how these three reinforce each other rather than operating separately. A fused identity makes the open door feel like a loss of self, not just a change of schedule. Scarcity trauma makes any amount of savings feel provisional, regardless of what the math actually says. And hyperbolic discounting quietly agrees with both of them, because a model that only measures financial risk will always find a reason to recommend one more year. It was never built to weigh identity or well-being in the first place, only numbers. Each mechanism gives the other two a kind of cover, which is part of why the resistance can feel so airtight and so hard to argue with from the inside. even when every individual piece of it, examined closely, turns out to be running on outdated information. Here's where this has a real cost, though it's not the kind of cost a spreadsheet captures well. Behavioral research on retirement timing has found a consistent, almost universal pattern. The one more year decision, once made, tends to repeat itself far more often than people expect going in, not because circumstances keep changing, but because the underlying mechanism behind the decision doesn't resolve just by adding a year. If identity fusion or scarcity trauma or a lopsided mental model is what's actually driving the delay, one additional year of income doesn't touch any of those. So the same decision often gets made again and again, sometimes for years past the point the numbers alone would have supported stopping. The measurable cost isn't a dollar figure, it's time and health, both of which behave very differently from money in one crucial way. They can't be recovered once spent. A dollar not spent this year can still be spent next year. A year of health, of mobility, of a specific relationship at a specific stage generally can't be deferred the same way. Multiple long-term studies on retirement satisfaction have found that people who retired earlier than they initially planned overwhelmingly report no regret about the decision, while people who repeatedly delayed cite it as one of their most common regrets in hindsight. That's not a claim about any specific number of years or dollars. It's simply the direction the pattern consistently points. There's a second cost worth naming, quieter than the first, the compounding of the anxiety itself. Every additional year spent in the one more year loop doesn't just delay the transition. It also gives the underlying mechanism another year to reinforce itself. Identity fusion deepens the longer a role continues uninterrupted. Scarcity trauma doesn't get corrected by more evidence of sufficiency. It just accumulates more years of practice at ignoring that evidence. In that sense, delay isn't a neutral holding pattern. It's actively strengthening the exact resistance it's supposedly buying time to think through. Here's what matters most. If the idea of stopping work makes you anxious even when your numbers check out, that doesn't mean something is wrong with your plan, and it definitely doesn't mean you're bad with money. It means an old identity, or an old sense of threat, or an old lopsided calculation is still running exactly as designed, just no longer pointed at anything real. The cage was never malicious. It kept you safe, structured, purposeful for a very long time, and that's worth genuine respect, not dismissal. The problem was never that the cage existed. The problem is that cages, unlike locked doors, don't come with a natural signal telling you the door's been open for a while now. Nobody rings a bell. You just have to notice it yourself, eventually, on your own schedule, which is exactly why so many people don't notice it until years after they technically could have. This reframes the whole question in a useful way. The usual question people ask themselves is, am I financially ready to retire? A question with a clean, calculable answer that a spreadsheet can actually settle. The harder, more honest question is, have I built anything on the other side of that door that feels as real as what's inside the cage right now? That second question doesn't have a spreadsheet answer. It has to be built, deliberately, often well before the door is walked through, which is exactly why so many people arrive at a financially ready retirement with a fully solved first question and a completely unaddressed second one. So here's one thing to try, and it's not a financial calculation. There are people better positioned than a video like this one to help with that part. This is smaller, and it's purely psychological. Write down one specific thing you'd be retiring to, not away from work, but towards something with an actual name and shape. Not relaxation in the abstract. Something concrete enough that you could describe a Tuesday build around it. People who can name what they're retiring to, specifically, tend to experience dramatically less of this particular anxiety than people who can only describe what they're leaving behind. The door was never the hard part. It was open the whole time. The hard part was just being able to picture what's on the other side of it, clearly enough to actually want to walk through. And if the honest answer, when you try this, turns out to be, I don't actually know yet, that's not a failure, and it's not a sign you're not ready. It's just information. It means the work isn't really a financial calculation anymore. It's this one, smaller, more human question, sitting quietly underneath the spreadsheet the whole time, waiting to actually be asked.